The heater clicked on. The cabin smelled of pine and burning logs. I held the coffee cup tightly. Steam curled upward and brushed my fingers. Sarah whispered, "Dad, are you sure you want to drive today?" I nodded, keeping my face calm. The dashboard clock read 8:43 a.m. I adjusted the rearview mirror. Sunlight bounced off the frost-covered windshield. My hand lingered over the ignition, feeling the cold metal. I could hear the distant hum of the highway. My mind replayed December 1998, the day I met Mr. Thompson at the law firm. His office smelled of leather and cigars. He handed me a thick manila folder, saying, "This case will define your career." I remembered tracing every line, noting the ink's subtle smudge. I learned patience then. It applied now. The seat beneath me creaked. The leather smelled faintly of old coffee. Outside, a crow cawed. Frost bit at my nose. I thought, Michael and Victoria are calculating. They've ignored every warning. My weakness is their plaything. I sipped coffee. Temperature of the cup grounded me. I scanned the rearview mirror again. The GPS blinked 12.4 miles to the exit. I reviewed transactions in my mind. $12,500, $47,000, $5,200. Their neglect is systematic. Each dollar is evidence. I replayed the morning calls. "Dad, you forgot your appointment," Victoria said sharply. "Michael says the car needs inspection," she added. Sarah interjected softly, "Maybe take it slow today." I nodded silently. Observation is key. The engine started smoothly. Cabin heat increased to 72 degrees. I felt the subtle vibration beneath my feet. Frost on the mirrors began to drip. My mind dissected every motive. Their overconfidence is predictable. My plan hinges on precision. Each action must follow discovery. Coffee steam fogged the dash. I recalled summer 2005, Grace laughing in this same cabin, pointing at the lake. "Measure everything carefully," she said. I could still hear her voice. The smell of pine mingled with her perfume. It anchored me. I glanced at the speedometer, 35 miles per hour. Sunlight warmed the frost. Wind rattled the door. I could hear distant traffic. Sarah leaned closer, whispering again, "Dad, your phone is ringing." It's unusual for them. I reached for it. Caller ID, Michael. I didn't answer. Timing must be right. I analyzed the pattern. Calls at 8:15, 8:30, 8:43 a.m. Each message a probe. My heart rate stayed steady at 72 beats per minute. I noted distance, 12.4 miles to the first stop. The cabin light flickered slightly. I traced the ledger entries mentally, 14 separate charges in the last 6 months. Each one deliberate. I reviewed 3 memory triggers from past years. I calculated cumulative totals. Strategy requires patience. Every sip of coffee reinforces focus. I adjusted the mirrors. Sunlight reflected off a patch of ice. Frost crunched under my shoes. I checked glove compartment. Pen from Grace's desk, 15 grams, engraved initials WB. A symbol and tool. I pressed it lightly between fingers. I recalled her voice. "Always check the numbers twice, Walter." I whispered silently to myself, plotting the sequence of steps. Observing is as important as acting. I could feel Sarah's presence beside me, calm, attentive. Her voice cut through the quiet. "Did you notice the missing $47,000 from last month?" My eyes widened slightly. That number confirmed everything. It anchored the plan. My pulse increased imperceptibly. Wind rattled the cabin. Pine scent thickened. Engine idled. I reviewed the route. First stop, 3.7 miles. Second, 5.6 miles. Third, 3.1 miles. Each distance calculated. Mind assessed options. Risk measured precisely. Strategy aligned with timing. Sarah's hand brushed mine lightly. She whispered again, and this time, her voice carried urgency. "Dad, they've been transferring money while you slept. $47,000. Today alone." I parked outside the law office. The air smelled of fresh asphalt and cold morning dew. Sunlight bounced off the glass facade. I held the pen tightly, feeling the weight. The clock on my dashboard read 9:02 a.m. Sarah whispered, "Dad, this is the place you wanted to check." I nodded. I could hear faint city traffic and footsteps echoing in the hallway. The building smelled faintly of coffee and printer ink. I remembered 2010. Mr. Keller, my senior partner, handed me a ledger and said, "Precision counts more than speed." I traced the smudge on the paper with my finger, remembering the smell of fresh ink. That lesson mattered today. I stepped out of the car. Frost crunched beneath my shoes. Sunlight reflected off the metal signage. I could feel the cold air on my face. The lobby doors were automatic, and the whoosh startled me slightly. I adjusted my scarf. The receptionist looked up. I smelled her perfume, lavender, faint but sharp. My mind analyzed everything: transactions, patterns, timing. Michael and Victoria are hiding something substantial. I sipped coffee. $12,500 transferred last week, $47,000 over 2 months, $5,200 today alone. Every number counts. I breathed slowly, mind racing. I scanned the office layout. I recalled 2007. Colleague Sandra had handed me a confidential file with a wax seal. I could still smell the sealing wax. The lesson in careful observation applied now. I stepped into the lobby, floor polished and reflective. Sounds of heels clicking echoed around. Fluorescent lights buzzed softly above. I noticed subtle gestures, eyes darting, bodies shifting. I glanced at a security monitor. The angle of the camera captured the front desk clearly. I considered my plan. The flow of data must remain discreet. I observed the receptionist typing. Michael had used this office for meetings, likely leaving traces. I opened my notebook. Calculated distances. Desk to copy machine, 15 feet. Entry to elevator, 24 feet. Sarah whispered again. Dad, look at the schedule on the board. Someone booked the conference room at 10:15 a.m. That time aligns with yesterday's strange call. I noted the pattern. My eyes scanned each document on the reception counter. Business cards, brochures, sticky notes. Each a clue. Internal analysis. They believe I am unaware. They underestimate my patience. I calculated the cumulative totals again. Each missing amount reinforced the theory. Mind processed. Trust must be tested. Coffee warmth seeped through my gloves. Sounds of distant phone rings. I felt tension tightening, yet controlled. I approached the directory. Floors numbered 1 through 12. Offices listed in small print. I memorized names. 42 individuals, 3 executive assistants, 2 security personnel. Observation is evidence. I stepped aside. Adjusted coat collar. Noticed slight draft from air vent. I recalled 2012 when Minter Harold advised, numbers tell stories if you know how to read them. I applied that principle now. Calculations of transactions, distances, and timing merged. Mind mapped routes for access, observation, and documentation. I glanced at my pen again. Gold-plated, engraved initials WB, 15 grams. Symbolic and practical. Each detail critical. Sarah nudged slightly, pointing at a folder labeled Monthly Transfers. I moved closer. Internal analysis, patterns emerging. I identified anomalies in ledgers. 3 transactions, $12,500, $47,000, $5,200. My pulse remained steady. I knew this was more than routine oversight. Subtle gestures from receptionist suggest someone is expecting someone. Security camera angle noted. Timestamp 9:03 a.m. Location verified. I scanned surrounding offices. Key individuals entering and exiting. Footsteps echoed differently across marble floor. Coffee aroma sharp now. My mind calculated steps, approach, record, observe, extract data. Movement precise. Timing critical. Distance measured. Light flicker on glass panel noted. I felt slight breeze on neck. My internal monologue. Plan intact. Observation continuous. Patience tested. Calculated risk. 10% deviation possible. Acceptable. I stepped toward folder. Fingers brushed paper. Felt texture, weight, slight indentation from pen. Data extraction immediate, efficient. I analyzed signatures, cross-referenced with prior months. Each discrepancy recorded. Temperature of lobby slightly above 68 degrees. Humidity noticeable. I noted ambient noise. HVAC hum. Printer clicks. Distant conversation. Mental model constructed. Patterns aligned. I checked phone discreetly. 8:57 a.m. Last message from Michael. Pattern confirmed. My hand steadied on folder. Calculated cumulative totals. 3 key numbers. $12,500, $47,000, $5,200. Mind map to action sequence. I noticed a notification ping on shared office tablet. I glanced. Spreadsheet update. Alert. Unauthorized transfer detected. Amount $47,000. Account: Victoria Brennan. Immediate comprehension. The realization struck. Sequence mapped. Everything aligned. Sarah leaned close, whispered softly, "Dad, look at this notification. It says $47,000 transferred this morning to her personal account." I climbed into my black Lincoln SUV. The leather smelled faintly of motor oil and polish. Frost sparkled on the hood. Engine idled at 8:59 a.m. I could hear the distant hum of traffic and a garbage truck rumbling down Pine Street. Sarah whispered, "Dad, be careful. The city streets are icy." I nodded. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. Seat warmed to 70 degrees. Sunlight reflected sharply off nearby windows. I remembered 2003. Mentor James Whitaker had handed me a briefcase, leather soft, containing contracts stained with coffee. "Precision and patience, Walter," he said. Ink smell lingered in my memory. That training guided me now. I turned the ignition. Headlights cut through early fog. Wipers squeaked. GPS displayed 12.7 miles to downtown Bank. I planned the route. Elm Street, 3.2 miles. 2nd Avenue, 5.6 miles. Pine Street, 4.3 miles. Each distance calculated. I monitored the rearview mirror. Shadows of pedestrians flickered. The aroma of bakery bread drifted from nearby cafe. I scanned addresses, 24 numbered buildings, 5 open shops, 3 cafes. Internal monologue. Children overestimate their control. My patience is underestimated. The ledger in my mind: $12,500, $47,000, $5,200. Each number confirmed their negligence. Analysis. Patterns are deliberate. Actions must be precise. I pulled out my phone. 9:05 a.m. last. Notification from Michael. Timing aligns. I sipped coffee. Warmth steadied my focus. I recalled 2009. Colleague Victor had shown me how to detect discrepancies in client accounts. The scent of paper and ink is vivid. Lesson applied now. Engine hummed beneath me. Cabin temperature stable. Wind rattled side mirrors. GPS updated. 3.4 miles to next stop. I analyzed entry points, office layouts, and camera angles. Movement must be measured. Strategy aligned. Sound of tires on asphalt steady. I glanced at Sarah. She whispered, "Dad, the front door keypad shows 3 failed entries today. Pulse steady." Mind calculated probability. 87% chance someone accessed data without authorization. Internal thought. Must confirm sequence. I reviewed folder labels and passenger seat. Monthly transfers, payroll audit, pending checks. Each critical. My eyes caught a reflection on the bank window. Light flickered. Interior carpet smells strong. I counted steps to counter. 15, 16, 17. Observed clerk actions. Noted conversations nearby. 42 words clearly audible. Internal analysis. Surveillance needed. Each clue aligns. I observed receipt slips. $12,500, $47,000, $5,200. Patterns undeniable. My plan mapped. I adjusted mirrors. Exterior temperature 34 degrees Fahrenheit. Sunlight angled sharply, reflecting off icy patches. My hand on pen, 15 grams, initials WB engraved. Symbolic, functional. I whispered silently, tracing mental notes. Observation is evidence. Coffee warmth persists. I reviewed keypad logs. 9:12 a.m., 9:18 a.m., 9:22 a.m. discrepancies noted. Internal monologue. Time to act. Strategy aligned with sequence. Each movement precise. Step on brake lightly. Engine idles. My eyes scanned overhead security cameras. 3 in view. 2 operational, 1 motion sensor triggered. Footsteps echoed in corridor. I visualized path. Counter to teller 18 feet. Entrance to side door 12 feet. Each detail critical. I whispered, "No mistakes allowed." Sarah nudged slightly, pointing to stack of envelopes. "Dad, look here." Someone removed them before 9. I opened envelope. Checked contents. Invoices, receipts. 3 transfers totaling $65,200. Realization hit. Heart steady, mind racing. Time, 9:23 a.m. I inhaled cold air through the cracked window. Frost flaked off windshield. Engine vibration steady. I turned key in ignition again. Headlights bright. Decision made. Route mapped. Distance recalculated. 4.7 miles to final stop. Internal monologue. If executed perfectly, they will not see this coming. Each step critical. I adjusted seat, tightened seatbelt. Observe traffic lights. Red, yellow, green. Timing essential. The folders aligned in passenger seat. Everything coordinated. I pulled away slowly. Tires gripped icy pavement. Brake responsiveness noted. 2.5 seconds delay. Sunlight reflected off rearview mirror. Internal analysis. Probability of interception low. GPS recalculates. 4.2 miles remaining. Cabin air warmed to 72 degrees. Wind whistled faintly through vents. Coffee aroma strong. I took deep breath. Every calculation precise. Seat vibration normal. Traffic density low. Mind focused on ledger, totals, and anomalies. Route monitored carefully. I reached side street. Turned sharply. Snow crunch beneath tires. Distance to bank 2.3 miles. Time 9:27 a.m. I checked rearview mirror. Sarah whispered, "Dad, now." I pressed accelerator. Tires spun lightly. Engine hummed. Decision executed. There is no turning back. Wheels left marks on icy asphalt. Speed steady at 25 miles per hour. Hand steady on wheel. I shifted gear to drive. GPS updated. Total time from parking lot, 12 minutes. Internal monologue. Every number, every step, every calculation perfect. Route aligned with observation. Action irreversible. Tires squealed slightly on ice. Cabin light flickered. Coffee warmth dissipating. I glanced at folders. Ledger entries precise. I felt control. I knew consequences immediate. I turned final corner toward bank entrance. Sarah whispered, voice low but urgent. "Dad, the teller has already flagged the transfer for $60,000. In 2014, my friend Daniel Carter sat across from me in a diner. The place smelled like burnt bacon and cheap coffee. He slid a check across the table and said, "Trust is always the first thing people steal." I can still hear the clatter of plates behind him. That memory settled in my chest as I stepped into the private office across the street from the bank. The room was small. It smelled like paper and old carpet. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The temperature felt colder than outside, maybe 66 degrees. I closed the door behind me. Sarah stood near the window, watching the street. I placed the folders on the desk. My hand rested on the pen. 15 grams. Gold-plated. Familiar. I checked my watch. 9:31 a.m. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. Every second counted now. I thought, Michael has known me for 52 years. He knows how I think. Or he thinks he does. I thought, his loss in 2022 changed everything. $150,000 gone. That failure pushed him. I thought, this is not just money. He wants control. He wants the final word over my life. I opened the first folder. The paper edges felt sharp against my fingers. I scanned the ledger again. $12,500. $47,000. $5,200. The pattern repeated every 21 days. Deliberate. Structured. I could hear cars passing outside. Tires on wet pavement. A siren in the distance. Sarah stepped closer. "Dad, what do we do now?" she asked. I looked at her. "We confirm everything," I said. "No assumptions." She nodded. "I saw Victoria here last week," she added. "She spoke to someone about transfers." I paused. That detail mattered. I checked another page. Dates aligned. March 3rd, March 24th, April 14th. 3 weeks apart. Consistent. I said, "This is not random." Sarah leaned over the desk. "It feels planned," she said quietly. I nodded. "It is planned," I replied. I flipped to the next sheet. The ink smelled fresh. That meant recent printing. I traced the signature line. Victoria's name appeared twice. Michael's once. That imbalance stood out. I remembered Daniel again. His voice. His warning. Trust is always the first thing people steal. I looked up at Sarah. "He started this after losing the real estate deal?" I said. "In 2022. That was the trigger." She frowned. "So this has been going on for 2 years?" she asked. 24 months, I said. At least 14 confirmed transfers. I tapped the paper. $340,000. The number sat between us. Heavy. Real. Sarah inhaled slowly. "That is not neglect," she said. "That is control." I nodded again. "He does not want money alone," I said. "He wants to decide everything." I walked to the window. The glass felt cold. I could see the bank entrance from here. People moved in and out. Ordinary morning. Nothing unusual. That is how it always looks from the outside. I thought, they believe I am slowing down. They believe I cannot follow the details anymore. I thought, they miscalculated the one thing that still works perfectly. My mind. I turned back to the desk. I picked up the pen. I wrote 3 numbers on a blank page. $12,500. $47,000. $5,200. I underlined them once. Clean. Precise. I said, we need a second confirmation source. Sarah nodded. The bank records? She asked. Already flagged, I said. We need internal verification. She hesitated. From who? I looked at the door, then back at her. From someone who processed it, I said. She swallowed. That is risky, she said. I shook my head slightly. Not if. We control the conversation, I replied. I checked my watch again. 9:36 a.m. Timing mattered. I organized the folders into 3 stacks. Past. Recent. Today. I aligned them carefully. Edges straight. Numbers visible. I said, Michael thinks I will react emotionally. Sarah looked at me. You are not, she said. No, I answered. I am reacting precisely. The room felt quieter now. Even the hum of the lights faded. I could hear my own breathing. Steady. Controlled. I picked up my phone. I scrolled to a contact I had not used in months. The name sat there. Waiting. I thought, this is the pivot point. No hesitation now. I pressed the call button. It rang once. Twice. 3 times. A click. A voice answered. Calm. Professional. Familiar. This is Thomas Green, the man said. I handled your son's transaction at 9:12 this morning. And you should know, he authorized a second transfer for $85,000. The library smelled of old books and polished wood. I ran my fingers across the spines. Dust motes floated in the sunlight streaming through the tall windows. My memory drifted to 2006, when colleague Angela Turner handed me a binder with client contracts. The faint smell of her perfume lingered. She said, every detail counts, Walter. That lesson settled in my mind as I entered the private research room on the 3rd floor. Temperature was cool, about 68 degrees. Fluorescent lights buzzed softly overhead. I could hear the faint hum of computers and the tapping of keyboards. Sarah trailed behind, keeping her voice low. Dad, do you see the pattern here? She whispered. I nodded slowly. Desks lined the walls. Papers stacked in 3 separate piles. The aroma of printer toner mixed with the faint scent of coffee. Sunlight reflected off the glass partitions. I spread the folders on a central table. One stack labeled past transactions. Another labeled recent transfers. The last labeled today. I checked my watch. 10:02 a.m. Internal monologue. Michael and Victoria have underestimated my attention. They believe 2 years of manipulations would remain hidden. I need to confirm every number. I glanced at the first page. $12,500. $47,000. $5,200. Each transfer calculated precisely. My mind analyzed the timing and sequence. I observed shadows from outside flickering across the floor. I thought, their confidence will be their undoing. Each step predictable. I recalled 2008. Mentor Harold Simmons had shown me. A spreadsheet anomaly. Paper smelled faintly of ink and cardboard. He had said, notice the discrepancy, or it becomes invisible. That principle applied here. I leaned over the table. I tapped a page. Traced ink smudges. Notes in margin. March 3rd, March 24th, April 14th. Spaced 21 days apart. I calculated cumulative totals mentally. 3 transfers per month for 14 months. $340,000 total. My pulse remained steady. Internal monologue. They believe they can outsmart me. They cannot. Observation is my weapon. Sarah leaned over and whispered, look at the email thread from Victoria. She coordinated with the bank at 9:12 a.m. I nodded. That confirms her involvement, I said. She is orchestrating this. I picked up the pen. 15 grams. Gold-plated. Initials WB engraved. Symbolic and functional. My eyes scanned the room. Computers hummed. Keyboards clicked. Papers rustled slightly. I organized the documents into piles by urgency. Past, recent, today. I counted invoices, 14 total in the last 6 months. Each with discrepancies. I noted names. Michael, Victoria, and 2 assistants. Each detail mattered. Internal analysis. Sequence is deliberate. Every transfer calculated to appear legitimate. I scanned the clock. 10:08 a.m., 36 minutes until the bank closes. I noted distances. Desk to filing cabinet, 12 feet. Desk to exit door, 18 feet. I memorized camera placements. 3 active, 2 inactive, 1 motion sensor near window. I reviewed sequence of events. Each action precise. No deviations allowed. My mind calculated response scenarios. Timing and speed critical. I reviewed the ledger again. $12,500. $47,000. $5,200. Pattern undeniable. I considered contacting Robert Ashford, attorney. We need legal verification. Timing perfect. Internal monologue. Execution must be flawless. Mistakes are unacceptable. I adjusted seat, checked lighting. Fluorescent flickered. Sunlight shifted across table. I leaned close to documents. Observed printing dates. February 28th, March 15th, April 5th. Recent, consistent, deliberate. I noted Sarah's subtle hand gestures. She indicated the top drawer. I opened it carefully. Inside, bank statements, signed approval slips. I verified amounts again. Each figure accurate. $12,500, $47,000, $5,200. Timing aligned. Internal monologue. They underestimated my patience. They miscalculated my vigilance. I reviewed Michael's signature. Slight pressure differences noted. Subtle, but detectable. I felt cold from window draft. I thought, if I act now, they cannot reverse it. Observed transaction history. 14 entries over 2 years. Each with consistent deviation. Internal monologue. The trap is ready. Sequence complete. I leaned back. Took a deep breath. Coffee aroma faintly lingered. My eyes swept the room one last time. Papers aligned. Numbers verified. Timing precise. I exhaled slowly. My hands hovered over pen. Internal monologue. One action. One moment. No margin for error. Sarah's voice cut through softly. Dad, the bank manager just called. They flagged another unauthorized transfer for $32,000. In 1996, my brother Daniel stood beside me in a crowded courthouse hallway. The place smelled like floor polish and old paper. He handed me a folder and said nothing, just nodded once. That silence stayed with me as I stepped into the underground parking garage beneath the bank. The air was colder here, around 58 degrees. The smell of gasoline mixed with damp concrete. Water dripped somewhere in the distance. Echoes carried every footstep. I moved slowly between the parked cars. Row B, space 27. I stopped beside a black sedan I recognized. Michael's car. The engine was still warm. I could feel heat rising from the hood. Time check. 10:19 a.m. I crouched slightly behind a concrete pillar. Sarah stayed back near the elevator door. She whispered, Dad, are you sure about this? I nodded once. No words. Internal thought. This is the moment everything becomes real. I thought. 2 years of planning revealed in minutes. I thought. Numbers do not lie. People do. I thought. Once I hear it, there is no going back. A door slammed on the far side of the garage. Footsteps approached. 2 sets. Michael's voice. Clear. Confident. He did not know I was there. Another voice answered. Male. Younger. Likely one of the assistants. They stopped near the sedan. I held my breath. The concrete pillar felt cold against my shoulder. Then Michael spoke. Did the transfer clear? He asked. The other man replied. Yes. 47,000 at 9:12 a.m. Michael exhaled. I could hear the relief. Good. That makes 3 this month, he said. The assistant hesitated. Are you sure he will not notice? Michael laughed softly. He cannot even track his own appointments anymore, he said. My hand tightened around the pen. 15 grams. Steady. He continued. We moved 12,500 last week, he said. Another 32,000 this morning. It all blends. The assistant lowered his voice. And the 85,000. Michael answered immediately. Scheduled for Friday. 11 a.m. same account. My pulse stayed steady. 72 beats per minute. I did not move. Michael kept talking. Once we hit 400,000, we shift everything, he said. Full control. No more approvals. The assistant asked, what about your sister? Michael replied, Victoria handles the paperwork. She signs whatever I need. A pause. Then Michael again. This started after that deal collapsed in 2022, he said. I was not going to lose 150,000 and just accept it. The assistant said quietly. So this is about recovery? Michael's voice hardened. No, this is about control, he said. He built everything. Now I decide what happens to it. Silence followed. Heavy, clear, undeniable. Internal thought. That is the admission. That is the truth. Not just money. Power. I felt something inside me collapse for a second. Then it steadied. Internal thought. This is no longer suspicion. This is confirmation. Every number aligns. Every motive exposed. The assistant spoke again. And he still thinks you are helping him? Michael laughed again. He trusts me, he said. He always has. That sentence settled deeper than the rest. I closed my eyes briefly. 1 second. No more. Internal collapse hit. Sharp. Controlled. Then gone. I returned to focus. Sarah's voice echoed faintly from behind me. Dad, what did they say? I did not answer. Not yet. I needed one more detail. The assistant asked, what if he checks the accounts? Michael replied, he will not. And if he does, we tell him it is estate restructuring. Another pause. Then footsteps shifted. Keys jingled. Car doors unlocked. I stepped back slowly. Quiet. Precise. Internal thought. They have no idea I am here. Internal thought. This is the only time I hear them without masks. Internal thought. After this, everything changes. The engine of the sedan started. Low rumble. Exhaust filled the air. I moved quickly now. No hesitation. I walked toward the elevator. Each step measured. Distance 15 feet. 10. 5. I pressed the button. The metal felt cold. Sarah looked at me. Eyes searching. Dad, she asked. I met her gaze. Calm. Controlled. No emotion visible. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. I stepped inside. Turned. Looked back once. The car pulled out of the space. Headlights cutting through the dim garage. That chapter ended right there. I reached into my pocket. Pulled out my phone. Opened the contact list. Robert Ashford. 35 years of trust. One tap. The line connected. Instantly. He answered on the first ring. I did not explain. I did not hesitate. I said one sentence. Robert, initiate full asset lock and restructure effective immediately, and I pressed confirm on the authorization screen. In 2011, my daughter Victoria stood beside me at a charity gala. The ballroom smelled like champagne and polished marble. She adjusted my tie and said, "You always plan 10 steps ahead, Dad." I remember the warmth of her hand. That memory followed me as I stepped into the restaurant across the street at 10:42 a.m. The place was half full. The smell of grilled steak mixed with fresh bread. Glasses clinked softly. Low jazz played in the background. I chose a corner table near the window. Sunlight cut across the white tablecloth. Sarah sat across from me. She watched the door. I placed the folders on the table. Neat. Aligned. The waiter approached. Coffee, he asked. I nodded. Black, I said. He left quietly. I checked my watch again. 10:44 a.m. 2 minutes later, the door opened. Michael walked in first. Victoria followed. They spotted me immediately. Surprise flashed across their faces. Then it vanished. They approached slowly. Michael pulled out a chair. Dad, what are you doing here? He asked. I looked at him. Calm. Measured. Sitting, I said. Victoria forced a smile. You should be resting, she said. I tilted my head slightly. I have been resting for 2 years, I replied. Silence settled for a moment. The waiter returned with coffee. Set it down. Steam rose between us. Michael leaned forward. We were worried about you, he said. I nodded once. You were busy, I said. Victoria crossed her arms. What is that supposed to mean? She asked. I slid one folder toward them. Open it, I said. Michael hesitated. Then he flipped it open. His eyes scanned the numbers. $12,500. $47,000. $5,200. I watched his expression tighten. Victoria leaned closer. These are normal transfers, she said quickly. I shook my head slightly. 14 transfers, I said. 21 days apart. $340,000. Michael sat back. You are misunderstanding the structure, he said. I took a sip of coffee. Bitter. Hot. Explain it, I said. Victoria spoke faster now. It is estate management, she said. We were simplifying accounts. I tapped the table once. At 9:12 this morning, I said. Another 47,000. Michael's jaw tightened. We had. Authorization, he said. I met his eyes. From who? I asked. He did not answer immediately. The restaurant noise faded around us. Forks clinked. Conversations blurred. My focus stayed on him. Internal thought. He is calculating his response. Internal thought. He still believes he can control this narrative. Internal thought. He does not know the full picture has already shifted. Victoria leaned in. Dad, you are overreacting, she said. I looked at her. In 2022, I said, you lost $150,000 in that deal. She froze. Michael's eyes flickered. I continued. That was the start, I said. 2 years. 24 months. Every transfer tied to that loss. Michael exhaled slowly. You do not understand pressure, he said. I nodded once. I understand numbers, I replied. He leaned forward again. Voice lower now. This family needs direction, he said. You built everything. But you are not the only one who can run it. I studied his face. There it was. Not just money. Control. Exactly as he had said in the garage. Victoria added, we are protecting what you created. I shook my head slightly. You are taking it, I said. Silence again. Heavy. The waiter passed by. Plates clattered somewhere behind me. I could smell garlic and butter now. Strong. Distracting. I ignored it. Michael straightened his jacket. What do you want, Dad? He asked. I placed my hand on the pen. 15 grams. Steady. Familiar. I already acted, I said. His eyes narrowed. What does that mean? He asked. I held his gaze. It means the accounts are no longer yours to access, I said. Victoria's breath caught. That is not possible, she said. I shook my head once. It is done, I replied. Michael leaned back slowly. You think you can just cut us out? He asked. I did not answer immediately. Internal thought. This is the moment he realizes control has shifted. Internal thought. His confidence is cracking. Internal thought. The balance of power is no longer where he believed it was. I took another sip of coffee. Then I set the cup down carefully. I did not cut you out, I said. I changed the rules. Victoria looked at Michael, then back at me. Her voice dropped. What rules? She asked. I met her eyes. Calm. Certain. And in that moment, I realized something that changed everything. They had never planned for me to fight back. In 2011, my colleague Sandra Benson had pulled me aside at the downtown office. The room smelled of coffee and printer ink. She slid a report across the desk and whispered, never underestimate the numbers, Walter. That lesson returned as I entered my home office at 11:05 a.m. The room smelled of leather and aged paper. Sunlight streamed through Venetian blinds, casting stripes on the hardwood floor. Sarah placed the folders on the desk. I could hear the hum of the computer and the occasional distant car horn. I sat down. Internal thought. Michael and Victoria have no idea the trust is locked. Internal thought. Every transaction they thought hidden is now accounted for. Internal thought. The balance of control has shifted. I opened the first folder. $12,500. $47,000. $5,200. Each number reaffirmed my calculations. I reviewed dates. March 3rd, March 24th, April 14th. Each transaction aligned perfectly. Michael and Victoria's plan unfolded clearly. I leaned back. Coffee aroma filled the air. I watched the sunlight shift across the table. Internal thought. They misjudged my observation. Internal thought. Their overconfidence is their vulnerability. Internal thought. I am executing precision. I picked up the pen. 15 grams. Gold-plated. Initials WB engraved. I pressed it lightly against the folder. Sarah whispered, Dad, they are calling the bank manager again. I nodded. Let them talk, I said. I reviewed the next folder. Detailed account logs, signatures, and timestamps. 10 entries flagged for scrutiny. For approvals each, carefully sequenced. I recalled 2009. My mentor Harold Simmons had shown me anomalies in complex accounts. The smell of ink and paper lingered. I had learned then that patterns reveal intentions. Internal thought. This is the moment to enforce consequences. Internal thought. Every action irreversible now. Internal thought. Michael and Victoria have underestimated me. I slid the folders into neat piles. I checked the window blinds. The sun angled sharply. Temperature inside 69 degrees. I traced the ledger again. $12,500. $47,000. $5,200. 3 transactions for today alone. Cumulative total, $340,000. I leaned forward, reviewing digital copies on the computer. Each file backed up. Timestamp 11:07 a.m. Everything accounted for. Sarah whispered again. Dad, should we call Robert now? I shook my head slightly. Not yet. We wait for their reaction. Internal thought. The trap is complete. Internal thought. They have no escape. Internal thought. Control is absolute. I observed Michael and Victoria pacing in the living room. Their expressions tightened. Voices overlapping. Michael said, Dad, you cannot just override the accounts. Victoria replied, We are following protocol. Michael snapped, This is ridiculous. 47,000 transferred already. Another 12,000 pending. Victoria's voice rose. And the 85,000 Friday transfer is untouched. Michael muttered. How could he anticipate all this? I sipped coffee. Steam curled around my fingers. Sarah watched carefully. Michael said again, We trusted the schedule. 10 steps ahead, and he still outmaneuvered us. Victoria added, Every action logged, every number confirmed, and still we are caught off guard. Michael shook his head. This is beyond my expectation. He had 3 separate verifications in place. Victoria whispered, and each with precise timing. 9:12 a.m., 9:22 a.m., 9:36 a.m. Michael groaned. We planned everything. All accounts, all transfers. Yet he saw through it. Victoria leaned closer. Our assumptions failed. Every threshold exceeded. Michael exhaled sharply. He has changed the rules. I watched them struggle to grasp the control shift. Internal thought. Their realization is fragmented. Internal thought. Confusion mixes with fear. Internal thought. I am calm, precise, untouchable. I picked up the pen, aligned the folders, checked backups, verified the timestamps. 10:30 a.m., 10:42 a.m., 10:57 a.m. Everything irreversible. Internal thought. This is the turning point. Internal thought. The power dynamic is permanent. I pressed the confirmation button. Database locked. Transfers secured. Legal notifications queued. Internal thought. No appeal, no override. Internal thought. They will see consequences unfold in real time. I exhaled slowly. The sun shifted slightly across the desk. I placed the pen down. Folders aligned. I looked at Sarah. She nodded. Internal thought. Everything executed as planned. Internal thought. Control fully restored. Internal thought. Michael and Victoria's plans cannot reverse. I stood and moved to the window. Sunlight on the floor reflected off the folders. I realized in that moment that the balance of power has irrevocably changed. I turned toward the door, took a deep breath, and pressed send on the final restructuring order. The digital confirmation flashed, accounts locked, transfers executed, every number irreversible. In 2004, my colleague Harold Simmons handed me a contract at the office. The paper smelled faintly of ink and leather. He said, Details define outcomes, Walter. That lesson echoed as I entered the city courthouse lobby at 11:25 a.m. The air was cool, 67 degrees, carrying a faint scent of polished wood. High ceilings, amplified footsteps, and distant chatter. I moved toward the marble staircase. Sunlight glinted off brass fixtures. Sarah stayed close. I laid folders on a polished bench. Internal thought. Michael and Victoria still believe they have advantage. Internal thought. They underestimated how systematically I documented every transfer. Internal thought. Each number is a chain. I reviewed account logs. $12,500, $47,000, $5,200. Dates marked. March 3rd, March 24th, April 14th. Timing consistent. Cumulative total $340,000. I noted the lobby's faint echo, rustling of papers, and distant siren. I scanned the directory. 12 offices, 3 security cameras active. Internal analysis. Control is irreversible. Every step aligned. I checked my watch. 11:27 a.m. Michael and Victoria entered the courthouse. Faces rigid, posture defensive. They spotted me immediately. Michael asked, Dad, what are you doing here? I said, observing. Victoria added, You should rest. I shook my head. Rest is a luxury I no longer have. He glanced at the folders. You are overreacting, Victoria said. I tapped the pen on the folder. 15 grams. Gold-plated. Initials WB engraved. I said, Numbers do not lie. Michael leaned forward. You think this proves anything? He asked. Sarah whispered. Dad, they are anxious. I nodded. Anxiety can reveal truth, I said. Michael pointed to a folder. Every transfer is authorized, he said. Victoria added. We followed schedule precisely. I checked timestamps. 9:12 a.m., 9:22 a.m., 9:36 a.m. Each aligned with ledger entries. I considered the lesson from Harold. Observation confirms intention. Internal thought. They have no idea their exposure is complete. Internal thought. Patience magnifies effectiveness. Internal thought. Action is deliberate and permanent. I leaned closer to the folder. Reviewed 14 entries over 21 days each. Cross-verified signatures. Numbers exact. Internal analysis. Michael believes authority equals control. He miscalculates. Victoria glanced at him nervously. Dad, what is your plan? She asked. I said, execution complete. Consequences pending. Michael exhaled sharply. This cannot happen, he said. Victoria whispered. All thresholds exceeded. I observed reactions, noting micro-expressions. Shifts in posture, clenched jaws. Internal thought. Balance of power permanently changed. I reviewed digital confirmations. 3 files backed up on server, 2 printed, 1 scanned. Each entry secure. Internal thought. Total transfers locked. Total funds inaccessible to them. I glanced at the lobby clock, 11:34 a.m. 3 minutes before the scheduled court hearing. Footsteps echoed. Doors opened and closed in rhythm. Ambient light shifted. I organized folders, aligning each precisely. Paper. Edges straight. Pen ready. Sarah whispered. Dad, they are panicking. I nodded slightly. Internal thought. Panic indicates awareness. Observation complete. Internal thought. Control absolute. Internal thought. This moment defines the outcome. I stood and walked toward the courthouse steps. Sunlight hit the stone steps sharply. Cold air bit at my face. I noted traffic and pedestrian flow. 5 cars passed. 2 pedestrians paused. 1 stopped to watch. I adjusted coat collar. Breath visible in the air. Internal thought. Michael and Victoria's confidence is collapsing. They cannot counteract. Each movement calculated. Each transfer secured. I reached the bottom step. Internal thought. Timing perfect. Action irreversible. Internal thought. Power consolidated. Internal thought. No return possible. I stepped off the final stair and paused. Internal analysis. I now understand the full scope. All assumptions I held about their control were flawed. They have lost access to every account. I realized that every number, every transfer, every authorization, every threshold has shifted permanently. The courthouse doors reflected my movement. I took a deep breath, lifted my hand, and pressed the confirmation key on the legal interface. The action executed. Every financial channel locked. Transfers completed. I looked at Sarah. Nodded once. Internal thought. Michael and Victoria no longer hold the power they thought they possessed. I stepped forward, realizing that the entire family dynamic has irrevocably changed. In 2012, my friend Harold Simmons handed me a confidential binder in the office. The paper smelled faintly of ink and coffee. He said, "Every number tells a story, Walter." That memory lingered as I walked along the terrace of my Lake Tahoe cabin at 12:10 p.m. The pine air was crisp. Sunlight reflected off the lake in scattered sparkles. I could hear distant birds calling. Wind rustled the tall pines. Sarah placed the folders on the wooden railing. Internal thought. Michael and Victoria cannot access any of the accounts. Internal thought. The transfers are locked permanently. Internal thought. Control has shifted entirely. I reviewed the final folder. $12,500, $47,000, $5,200. Each transfer noted clearly. Internal analysis. Timing aligned with my strategy. Internal thought. Patience and observation yielded the result. Sunlight warmed the back of my neck. Pine needles scratched slightly against the railing. I considered the lesson from Harold. Internal thought. Careful planning always reveals outcomes. I sipped my coffee. Temperature 145 degrees. Aroma sharp. I looked out over the lake. Distance to the opposite shore. Approximately 1.2 miles. Internal thought. Michael and Victoria underestimated the system. Internal thought. Their assumption of control was fragile. Internal thought. I can now act with certainty. Sarah whispered. Dad, do you feel the shift? I nodded. The accounts are secured, I said. I set the pen down, 15 grams, gold-plated, initials WB engraved. I leaned against the railing. I reviewed the ledger again. 14 transactions, 21 days apart, totaling $340,000. Internal analysis. Every number, every date, every transfer aligned with plan. I checked timestamps on digital copies. 12:12 p.m., 12:14 p.m., 12:18 p.m. All confirmed. I adjusted the blinds slightly. Sunlight angled across the table. I reviewed physical copies again. Each entry noted. Backups verified. Internal thought. The system functions without error. Internal thought. Michael and Victoria will see results unfold gradually. I glanced at Sarah. Not at once. We did what was necessary, she said. I said, it is complete. Internal thought. All preparations accounted for. Internal thought. No further interference possible. I observed the cabin quietly. Breeze from lake carried pine scent. The faint sound of waves lapping against the shore. Internal thought. Balance of power permanently altered. Internal thought. Their assumptions no longer hold. Internal thought. They will learn consequences slowly. I reviewed numbers one last time. 3 key transfers today. $12,500, $47,000, $5,200. All secured. Internal thought. Outcome inevitable. I looked out at the horizon. Sunlight reflected off water at 74 degrees Fahrenheit. I took a deep breath. I reviewed internal accounts again. Backup copies, digital, printed, scanned. Total verification complete. I reflected on past lessons from Harold, Daniel, and Sandra. Each had taught me vigilance. Each guided this process. Internal thought. Preparation ensures certainty. Internal thought. Observation maintains control. Internal thought. Patience rewards precision. I sipped coffee again. Steam rose steadily. I looked at Sarah. She smiled faintly. I said, this concludes our task. She nodded. We walked toward the cabin interior. Floorboards creaked. Temperature inside slightly warmer, 71 degrees. Aroma of old pine mixed with faint coffee. Internal thought. All actions executed. Internal thought. No account remains unsecured. Internal thought. Control is complete. I placed the pen back in the drawer. Folders stacked neatly. I observed the lake once more. Sunlight glinting. Distance to dock measured 50 feet. Wind softened. Internal thought. Vigilance has ensured outcome. Internal thought. Patience has dictated results. Internal thought. Justice is not always swift, but it is precise. I turned toward the cabin door. Sarah whispered, Dad, what now? I smiled faintly. Now, we observe the flow of consequences. Every choice reveals its truth. Every action completes its story. Control is not permanent, but preparation is eternal. Numbers guide decisions. Observation preserves integrity. Patience teaches lessons. And the truth eventually surfaces.